The autumn came quickly. The children got sick almost at the same time. Cough, fever, sleepless nights. IHOR carried Sophie Y. Caw in his arms when she struggled for breath during an attack. Boiled Compote S. rubbed her chest with some ointment whose smell still lingered on the pillows. Alana silently watched him attentively, but no longer suspiciously, rather with a mixture of gratitude and fear. Because every time it got tough she thought, will he stay this time, or will he run away again? IHOR stayed. He endured, but he too fought with himself, with the habit of seeking escape in work in the form of a stable bank account. Now he refused this instinct daily, like overcoming an addiction. One evening, when the children were already asleep, he sat at his laptop. His eyes shone with some numbers and lines of text. Alana approached. Something important. An invitation to a project for 6 months abroad. She didn't answer immediately. Her heart clenched. "And I won't go," he said quietly. "I just wanted to say it out loud to believe it myself." But the thought remained. It hung between them like humidity in the walls, silent, invisible, yet sticky. He seemed to eat himself alive. The salary in Ukraine was enough for the household, but nothing more. A new school for Mark was out of the question. In Sophie Y. Caw was growing. Clothes needed to be changed every season, and although she demanded nothing, IHOR felt guilty without reason, just as a man. And just then messages began arriving again from a friend in Dubai. "You have experience. Conditions even better guaranteed." IHOR sat at night staring at the screen, clenching his jaw. He didn't even reply, but he thought very long. At the same time, Alana noticed something else. He became restless, often lost in thought, silent even when things were good, and that worried her more than open talks. "Are you hiding something again?" she asked one evening. "In thinking about running away, about responsibility and fear that he'll break something again." She sat beside him. "I'm afraid that he'll believe in you fully again, and then I won't go even if we eat bread and water," he said, and she believed, but not immediately, only over time. Then it happened again. Something brought everything to the surface. At Sophie Y. Caw's kindergarten, one parent overheard the girls say, "My dad left us once, but then he changed his mind." And it was repeated aloud in front of her and other children. That evening she came home silent. IHOR immediately understood what happened. Your daughter is forced to explain to others why her dad left and came back, and laugh about it as if it's something normal. He found no words. "She is strong, IHOR, but I don't want her to explain your choices because you're an adult." Listen," she interrupted. "If inside you money and family fight again, make a choice. But don't write later from your smartphone how much you miss us. We are here, or we're not." He clenched his fist, sat down, buried his head in his hands like a boy, and said, "I'm not running anymore, even from shame." That night she lay beside him alone, without an invitation, without may I. She just touched his back, laid her head on his chest, and they fell asleep in silence, but no longer afraid. Because for the first time in a long time both didn't think about later. They were now. But life doesn't stop testing even those who seem to have endured. A month later, IHOR brought home a letter. His elderly father had been hospitalized in another city. He needed to go for a few weeks to care for him, arrange documents, solve inheritance issues. And although it was necessary, Alana felt cold again in her chest. Her reaction was instant, not emotional but reflexive, like a person burned twice. "How long are you going?" "I don't know exactly, but I promise he'll return. I won't run." She nodded but didn't smile, because this was another test. Had anything really changed? The next part, his journey, thoughts on the train, a new temptation to escape, and an unexpected meeting with a past. And at home, children waiting again. Alana, who holds the home, but this time differently, stronger. Not a victim. A horse train left slowly. Lights, trees, small stations where people always wait flickered past the window. He held an old travel bag. Inside were only the essentials, but the heaviest thing he carried was inside memories and the shadow of who he once was. His father lay in the hospital for the 3rd day, and although his life was not in danger, something was pressing, as if time was squeezing, hinting, "Talk before it's too late." For the first time in many years, IHOR left Alana and the children, not for ambition, but out of duty. But a bigger duty was to himself, not to run away like before, to prove to himself he had changed. In the hospital it smelled of medicine and boiled water. His father lay under an IV, gray fragile. Like a blurred silhouette of time, IHOR froze. At the door something strange overwhelmed him, memories of childhood when his father always seemed a silent wall, but now an ordinary tired man. Well, finally the old man croaked. Thought you wouldn't come as always. I am not the same as before, IHOR replied, indifferent now. The old man laughed, coughed. Really, that's the first time you say that. What changed? IHOR sat down. When I left my family for money, I thought I was saving them, but I was saving myself. Now I know who I betrayed more, myself or them. The old man nodded. Remember, I left once to Siberia for construction and you stayed with your mother. I remember Mom cried a lot then, and I thought a man is one who is silent and earns. No, son, a man is one who doesn't run away even when he's afraid. They both fell silent, and this silence was no longer cold as before, but deep, as if something had finally settled. Meanwhile at home, Alana again felt how the house breathed differently without him, but now not painfully. She no longer feared that he would not return. Her fear transformed. Now she wondered if they both had enough inner strength to be together even when life presses again. She took the children to school, cooked, worked, and at night wrote notes, thoughts, things she never dared say out loud. One evening Mark saw her notebook. Is this a diary? Not exactly, just a place where I can be honest. And with me you can't. I can, but sometimes it's easier to say something to paper first and then to a person. Mark thought. Then I'll start writing too. About what? About what I see about us, so I won't forget. Days passed slowly, but they passed together. Mark and Sophie Wyckoff grew up in a house filled with quiet hope and cautious trust. Alana and IHOR learned to live without running away, without hiding feelings. Money was still a problem, but it was no longer the enemy. It was a tool, a challenge, and sometimes a reason to talk honestly, not to fight. Mark started to write in his notebook short stories about school friends, about dreams, and about his dad, who stayed even when it was hard. Sophie Wyckoff sang songs she made up about a family that never leaves and a dad who is a hero, not because of money, but because of love. One afternoon IHOR sat at the kitchen table looking at old photographs, black and white, faded images of his parents and childh. A sudden wave of understanding hit him. The past was not a chain, but a lesson. The future was not a question, but a promise. Alana joined him silently with a cup of tea. She smiled softly and said, "You've changed, I see it in your eyes." He nodded. "Because I stopped running. And this time I want to stay." She took his hand and squeezed it gently. "We will be okay." And for the first time in many years the house felt warm, not just because of the stove, but because of something deeper, something they built together every day. The children grew, and so did their dreams. Mark wanted to become a writer, and Sophie Wyckoff dreamed of music. Alana and IHOR supported them quietly, always reminding them that love was the foundation, not money. There were challenges, many sleepless nights, worries about money, arguments that sometimes flared, but were followed by apologies and hugs. They learned to forgive and understand that no amount of money could replace trust and presence. One winter evening Alana found IHOR staring out the window, his face tired, but peaceful. "What's on your mind?" she asked. "Just thinking about how far we've come, how much we've survived, and how much more we can endure." He smiled faintly. "It's not about the money anymore, it's about us, about being together no matter what." Alana leaned her head on his shoulder. "And that is the real wealth." Together they faced the storms and celebrated small victories, each day proving that love was stronger than fear, stronger than money. Years passed, the children grew into strong, independent individuals. Mark published his first book, inspired by their family journey, and Sophie Wyckoff met on stages sharing her music and story. Alana and IHOR watched with pride, knowing that, despite all the struggles, love had been their guiding light. They had learned that money could not buy happiness, but it could buy choices and security that gave space for love to grow and heal. They understood that true wealth was in being present, supporting each other, and facing challenges together. One evening IHOR and Alana sat quietly reflecting on their past mistakes and victories. "We were broken but not defeated," IHOR said. And we built something real, something lasting. Alane smiled. Our family is proof that love can survive anything, even when money tries to pull it apart. They held hands silently, feeling the strength of their bond and the hope for the future they would face together no matter what. The years kept moving forward. Mark and Sophie Wyckoff faced their own challenges growing up in a world that was often uncertain, but the foundation in their parents' build kept them grounded. And Alane continued to nurture their relationship, learning to balance work, family, and dreams. Money was no longer a source of conflict, but a tool they used wisely, sometimes struggling but always communicating openly. They celebrated small successes and comforted each other during failures, understanding that life was not perfect, but love made it meaningful. One quiet evening, Ihor looked at Alane and said, "Remember when I wanted to run away? Now I know running doesn't solve anything. Staying and fighting for what matters is real courage." Alane smiled warmly. "And I am proud of you." They sat together in silence, feeling grateful for the journey and hopeful for whatever came next. The years kept moving forward. Mark and Sophie Wyckoff faced their own challenges growing up in a world that was often uncertain, but the foundation in their parents' build kept them grounded. And Alane continued to nurture their relationship, learning to balance work, family, and dreams. Money was no longer a source of conflict, but a tool they used wisely, sometimes struggling but always communicating openly. They celebrated small successes and comforted each other during failures, understanding that life was not perfect, but love made it meaningful. One quiet evening, Ihor looked at Alane and said, "Remember when I wanted to run away? Now I know running doesn't solve anything. Staying and fighting for what matters is real courage." Alane smiled warmly. "And I am proud of you." They sat together in silence, feeling grateful for the journey and hopeful for whatever came next. The family gathered one evening to celebrate Sophie Wyckoff's birthday. The house was filled with laughter, music, and the smell of fresh cake. Mark read a passage from his new book about love, sacrifice, and hope. Ihor and Alane watched their children with pride, their hearts full of gratitude. Despite the hardships, the sleepless nights, and the moments of doubt, they had created a life where love was stronger than money, stronger than fear. Together, they had built a family that could withstand storms and grow even in difficult times. As the evening ended, Ihor whispered to Alane, "This is what matters, the people we love and the memories we make." She nodded. "And nothing else will ever be more important." They embraced, knowing that their story was far from over, but whatever came next, they would face it together. Years later, when the children had moved out and started their own lives, Ihor and Alane found themselves in a quieter house, but their bond remained strong. They often reminisced about the past, the struggles, the moments of fear, and the victories that followed. Money had lost its power to divide them. Instead, it became a reminder of how far they had come and what they had overcome. They learned that love was not a feeling that fades, but a choice that grows stronger with time and effort. One afternoon, while sitting together in the garden, Ihor looked at Alane and said, "We have everything we need, not because of what we have, but because of who we are together." Alane smiled, her eyes shining. "And that is the greatest wealth anyone can have." They held hands quietly, feeling the peace that comes from true connection and the hope for many more years together. In the final chapter of their journey, Ihor and Alane faced new challenges that tested their resilience. Aging brought health concerns and moments of reflection, but their love remained a steady light through the changes. They supported each other with patience and kindness, understanding that life was fragile yet precious. Their children visited often, bringing stories of their own family's successes and struggles. Mark and S. of Wyckoff carried forward the lessons of honesty, forgiveness, and love that their parents had taught them. One evening, Ihor looked at Alane and whispered, "After everything, the money, the fights, the fears, what remains is us and the love we built." Alane smiled softly. "And that love will live on forever." Together they watched the sunset, knowing that their story was a testament to the power of love over adversity and the true meaning of family.